What's going on, guys? Paul here. Welcome back to another Cardano video. Today I am joined by Pi Lanningham from the SundaySwap team. There's been a lot of talk about SundaySwap over the last while. They were, I think, the first project to come out and talk about an ISO back a while ago, and it was delayed at the time, but now we have Pi on to give us some of the details around what is going to happen. So Pi, you're very welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to finally get you on here. So look, let's jump straight into it. People just want the information. For anyone who hasn't heard of SundaySwap, can you give the elevator pitch of what SundaySwap is, and then we'll get into the ISO details?
Sure, of course. So SundaySwap is looking to be the premier DEX, decentralized exchange for the Cardano network. And a DEX serves fundamentally a very basic role of allowing person A with asset A to swap with person B for asset B. And there's a couple of different mechanisms that people and projects use to do that, but that's the core idea. And really what we're trying to do is decentralize the New York Stock Exchange, right? And what I mean by that is decentralizing both access to those financial services, but also decentralize the profits from those financial services, and create a DAO, a distributed autonomous organization that that serves the same purpose without kind of all of the intermediaries that you would have in classical finance.
Okay, yeah, I have loads of questions on that, but we definitely will have you on again for another video to dive deeper into what all of that type of stuff looks like on Cardano. So the ISO is what people are interested in. You were originally going to have it back, I think the end or beginning of June was the initial thoughts, or maybe end of May. But when are we going to see it now? It was delayed at the time, and looking at the project now compared to back then, it's night and day looking at the project now. I had a lot of concerns at that stage, but the more I see of you guys, I think, yeah, they've got a lot going now. So when can people actually join the ISO?
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. And you know, to some extent, I agree. We were a brand new project, and we hadn't kind of gotten all of our ducks in a row, and so we took that opportunity to do that. And I think people have seen that transformation. We delayed the ISO largely due to legal concerns, and now we're really excited that we've been able to put together a framework that allows us to still run the ISO and still get that same community engagement. And so I'll share those details with you. Without burying the lead, and then I'll kind of circle back around and talk about what an ISO is. But for those who are just mostly interested in the details, ISO will be happening alongside the launch of our DEX. Whenever that happens, we're currently targeting, shortly after the Alonzo hard fork. As with all software, there may be delays, but they will, whenever that is, the ISO will happen concurrently. It will run for 5 epochs. An epoch is a 5-day period on Cardano, so that's 25 days. And each one of those epochs, we will take 1% of the total supply and distribute that to the people who are staking to the SundaySwap stake pools. We won't be running those stake pools. We'll be choosing kind of members of the community to spin up those stake pools, and kind of delegating to that, because this is no longer a fundraising vehicle for us. It's more of a how do we get the community involved, and how do we seed these tokens as wide as possible so that we have a really healthy and robust voting ecosystem for our governance model. This 5% that we're going to be giving out is not kind of the only way that we'll be giving out community tokens. There's a significant portion of our supply will be given out to the community in different ways. For example, providing liquidity on the DEX, or kind of other community engagement programs that we haven't finalized the details on, so I can't break those here. But I will also say that the tokenomics, the exact breakdown of where those tokens are going, will be released kind of well in advance of that. So that's the big details. I want to circle back a bit. If none of that made sense to you, I want to explain. An ISO is going to be initial stake pool offering, where people can delegate to a stake pool, and there's different ways to run it. Some other projects are running it differently, but in our case, you will receive both your ADA rewards and Sunday rewards. Yeah, so that's the ISO model. Now maybe go pause and rewatch that big flurry of details. I just wanted to make sure to get that out for people who only watch the first couple minutes of a video.
Okay, so I'll try and summarize then in bullet points. Basically, if anyone sees a Sunday swap pool on Ada Pools or Pool Tool, it's not you guys. You are not spinning up pools under your own name. So we see whenever something like this happens, you see, we'll call them scammers because that's basically what they are, trying to spin up replica pools in order to gain some of the delegation. So you will be choosing some of the community pools, and I'm sure that will be put all over your social media and all over your platforms to say which are the legitimate pools. So just putting that warning out there for people.
100%.
And essentially, you're giving away 5% of the supply of Sunday. So I seen a lot of the comments. So there is actually an article that talks all about this, and I will put the links to that down below for anyone who wants to read through that. But in the announcement I seen, some people were, well, a good few people were talking about the 5% and kind of weren't happy about only 5% going out there. But even from my perspective, when you look at projects like this, there are a lot of other ways to earn the token as well. In terms, I suppose the biggest one is going to be providing liquidity. So when you have the tokenomics out, that's something I'm definitely going to be interested in as well. So I would say to people, don't think that the team is just taking 95% or that big investors are taking it. There's always lots of other ways to put it out there. And the good thing for people is they don't have to make the decision now whether they want to get involved or not. All of that type of stuff, I'm sure, will be out before the ISO happens. So hopefully them few bits made sense for people. And let me see, what else did I have? Yes, we talked about the community stake pools, and they will be setting up whatever way they want to do it. Whales as well. So I seen in the article there was about whale control. So you don't want, if you're giving out 1%, you don't want a lot of that going to one or two big accounts. So do you want to talk about how you're doing that, or maybe that's not finalized yet?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, exactly. The exact details aren't finalized. So, keep an eye out for future announcements if this is something that really interests you. But we are considering a number of ways to mitigate the involvement of whales. Unfortunately, without kind of an identity solution like Atala Prism, there's no way for us to completely solve this problem. There's nothing preventing a whale from breaking up their 10 million ADA into 1,000 different wallets. But we're hoping that the mechanisms that we put in place dissuade whales. And so there's a number of avenues for that. One is kind of creating a positive incentive. Ultimately, using our DEX is going to be riskier, but higher reward. And so for the big bags that can tolerate that risk, we expect that to be a big draw for them, is to actually just provide liquidity on the DEX that we launch. Another mechanism that we are considering is that the exact function that we use to compute the rewards won't be linear. It won't be, 10 more ADA earns you X more Sunday. There will be kind of a point of diminishing returns. That won't necessarily mean that your rewards go down after a certain point. It just means that each additional ADA will earn you less Sunday, whatever that function ends up being. And we're going to kind of tune those parameters as we get closer to launch. And then the last one, and I think we briefly discussed this in the article, is that those funds are going to be for very large bags. Those funds are going to be under a kind of short lockup schedule so that you can withdraw them over a period of time.
Okay, yeah, actually that leads us into one other thing. I do agree on the liquidity, providing sometimes if someone has a really big bag, then they would be better providing liquidity on the DEX. So just for anyone who isn't clear on that, you haven't been involved with DEXs before, on the DEX you will have the possibility to provide liquidity, which is basically you're putting your ADA or some other funds into the smart contract, and you're providing the opposite side of the trade for someone else who's using the DEX. So there is that option, and then generally you earn tokens that way as well. But on what that's the riskier side, I suppose, because you're dependent on smart contracts. But if you are staking to a pool to earn the Sunday, then your ADA is never at risk because you're still in control of the wallet, and you just get the Sunday as well as your ADA rewards. So on the
minimum, and just to clarify there, the risk comes in a number of forms, right? Obviously, at launch, these are unproven smart contracts, and we feel confident in them, but there's no reason for kind of everybody to necessarily feel confident. They may want to see how it plays out. We plan to do an audit and extensive security testing, but so there's a small amount of risk there if you're kind of have that mindset. But the bigger risk that you see on every DEX is this notion of impermanent loss, where because you're providing that other side of the trade, people are going to be trading into that position, and your ratio of tokens between two assets is going to be changing. And so if the price of those underlying assets is kind of shifting dramatically, and the price of the one that you care about goes way up, then providing that liquidity could be less profitable than if you had just held on to all of your ADA in the first place. So there is some amount of impermanent loss, and the bet made by every DEX is that the returns that you make on the trading fees more than offsets that impermanent loss. But that's where the bulk of the risk comes from. It's not just the kind of the smart contracts.
Yeah, that's a good point actually on the impermanent loss, and I think that's definitely a video I would like to put out before. Might even get some of your input into that as well before we go live with smart contracts, because we see lots of DEXs out there trying to put it out there. So I'd like to cover all aspects like that, so people are prepared when they actually come up to trading, because some people mightn't have used Ethereum or used other networks before where they have actually used DEXs or decentralized exchanges there. So just back to the whale part of it as well, and the minimum ADA. So there's no minimum for people to actually earn their Sunday. Once they can stake, they can earn.
Yeah, so there's technically a minimum, and this is enforced by the Cardano protocol, and that's 10 ADA. So I think that's somewhere around $14, $15 right now. There's nothing we can do to get around that, unfortunately. But one of the concerns when we were originally launching our ISO is that Cardano has this mechanism to prevent against a certain type of attack, where any bundle of native tokens has to be attached to some minimum amount of ADA. Pre-Alonzo, that's 1. They're changing the formula for that slightly, so it's going to be slightly more than 1 for native tokens. But the idea is, in our previous iteration of the ISO, we would have had to send out 1 ADA plus however much Sunday you had earned. And so for small bag holders, that was kind of economically painful for us. And so we had this notion of you accrue rewards over time, and once you reach a certain threshold, we can pay out. And it confused a lot of people, and it was not ideal on from our perspective. But because we are launching alongside the DEX and we will have smart contracts, we can implement a much better solution. And we had described this previously, but to reiterate, essentially, what will happen is there will be a smart contract holding the Sunday that you are entitled to. And you will pay yourself 1 ADA, or whatever that minimum amount of ADA is. So it never goes into our coffers or anything like that. But you will pay it to yourself, and along the way, it will pick up the Sunday that you are entitled to. And so that's a much more cost-effective way for us to distribute this ADA. And no matter how much ADA you are entitled to, or how much Sunday you are entitled to, if it's 3 Sunday, if you're willing to pay the 0.17 ADA transaction fee to do that, then there will be a place on our website to click that button and redeem and claim that ADA.
Okay, so essentially, is that every epoch people will be able to go into wherever this is on your website and claim the Sunday that they've earned?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and I presume there's no problem with them letting it accrue. So you're running for 5 epochs. If they want to let it run for 5 epochs and then claim at the end, or some people might claim and then put it in as liquidity even into the DEX at that stage.
Yeah. All of those are totally fine.
Great. Let me see. I think that was everything that I had. Is there anything else you want to go through? We'll try and stick just on keeping this fairly short to the point for people. Is there anything else you can give us on the future or what's coming down the line?
Yeah, no, I want to say that I'm really excited that we managed to find a legal framework that allows us to do the ISO. Obviously, it wasn't our idea in the first place. There were a couple projects that had toyed with it in the past, and even for us, it came from a member of our community. If you're watching Drink and Drive, then Thank you for that. But it is definitely one that we kind of refined and popularized and got into the mouths of a lot of people. And I'm really excited to see that all of the kind of innovation and progress that is coming out of the Cardano ecosystem with other projects being able to use this model for their own funding. To that end, we plan on releasing kind of, we're calling it a green paper, and this is kind of tongue-in-cheek taken from white paper or from the government space, a policy framework for the important legal facts that we have found in helping us derive this model. And that's going to be like some case law. It's not going to be something that you could take to court, but it's something that is kind of a starter packet for your lawyers, if you are out there thinking of starting a Cardano project, to say, hey, here are the cases that are relevant, and here's the tests that are relevant that the SEC is going to be thinking about, the Howey test and things like that. And so as soon as we kind of get that together and kind of have our legal team review it and stuff like that, we really want to put that out there for the Cardano community. I also want to say that we're really excited about where Sunday Swap is going, and the kind of partnerships and announcements we've had so far, and the ones that are coming up. And maybe expect to see a little bit of purple in Sunday's future.
Not just the shirt either, is it? It's something else that we can expect to come out.
Yeah, I won't say much more than that, but
okay. I'll put the social links down below anyway for everyone. And just on that legal framework, I think that really will be a really good starter kit for a lot of projects that are out there. Look, there's people who like the ISO model. There's people who don't. I can see both sides of it. I can see some projects are going to abuse the model. Some can use it very effectively. I'm sure you guys had a really big legal build to get to the stage of where you could actually launch properly, because the last thing you want is to do this wrong, have a really successful project, and all of a sudden the SEC comes down, and you see what happened with Ripple. As soon as the SEC got involved, the price tanks, and that could happen to anyone. So it's always good to have the legal side on point. So having that as a starter kit for people to give to their own legal teams it's a great, I suppose, gift to give to developing projects out there as well. So Pi, really appreciate your time today. I have learned lots as well, and I definitely want to have you back on again. For anyone who wants more information on Sunday Swap, probably the best interview I've seen in a while was your one with Hashoshi. Big fan of Hashoshi here, and there was a lot of information there on Sunday Swap, both on the technical side and where you guys are going. So I will put a link to that one down below as well for someone who wants more information.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. And if you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do so. What I do here is all about Cardano and what is going on within the Cardano ecosystem. Give the video a like, share it out there, or leave your thoughts down below as well. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon.